My first job as assistant professor is at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. So the middle of corn and soy fields is sort of this large campus, a Big Ten school, that doesn't actually have a mascot. They decommissioned Chief Alumni in 2007-ish, when the NCAA said that you couldn't have NCAA tournament events there with the mascot. But, you know, as a new assistant professor, you're at a basketball game, and to see the chief being a regular part of some of the activities during those basketball games, well, it was a little bit of a shock, because you think, wait a minute, the mascot's gone. You look around the community and you see images of the chief everywhere, at the bar, on your neighbor's car, at sporting events. People are wearing still the clothing with the image on it. All around campus you can buy images of the chief. So you find the chief everywhere, and so part of this was, our research was really about, well, to what extent, so these are just anecdotes, to what extent is really the chief present on campus? And if the chief's really present on campus, how do students feel about it? And what does it do to students in terms of belonging? So that's kind of where the research starts.
In studies 3 and 4, we manipulate exposure, so participants either see sort of images of this campus that don't have the stereotype expression, this depiction of the chief, or they see images that do have the chief. And we find that when people see the chief, there's a relationship between their level of prejudice against Native Americans and the amount of belongingness they feel on campus. Whereas in the control condition, where they don't see this symbol, there's no relationship between sort of belongingness on campus and the way they feel about Native Americans.
So if people higher in prejudice feel more belonging, people lower in prejudice feel less belonging. So when you're exposed to the chief on campus, you're exposed to images of students on campus with imagery of the chief. People low in prejudice feel less belonging. It's the same study with the stereotype exposure. So stereotype exposure versus not. So you're seeing students on campus, living their everyday lives, studying, going to sporting events where the imagery is present or absent of the mascot. When the mascot image is present across the studies, we see a decrease of about 5% in donations to the university relative to when the mascot's not present. But you see that decrease happening primarily for people who are low in explicit prejudice towards Native Americans. So people who are low in prejudice towards Native Americans, they see images of the chief, they feel presumably less belonging on this campus, and they feel less willing to support the campus through monetary donations.
It's certainly counter to a lot of the narrative you see from schools, and their sort of expectation is that there will be a real strong alumni backlash. And I know, it's worth it to be cautious about a real life case, because university donations are so sort of driven by outliers. But yeah, I think it is somewhat surprising, but also kind of makes sense, right? If you're making decisions about how much you identify with and support a campus, one of the questions you're going to ask yourself is do I belong there? And sort of seeing expressions that don't align with your values, it makes sense that would shape your willingness to participate and donate to a campus. First, they can be clear about why they're making the transition, take some ownership of the decision, not sort of just treat it as a mandate from on high, even if it is something that comes from like the NCAA or a governing body. Second, the ones that are successful spend some time investing in the community, getting input on sort of what they want a new mascot to represent, how much continuity they want in terms of like color or themes or other things like that from the old mascot. And then sort of what they'd be looking for in a new mascot. And then 3, they replace it. And they replace in a way that is like gonna get students excited about it. Arkansas State had like a wolf ride a motorcycle into a football game and shoot off fireworks, right? There's things that just kind of like build a little bit of excitement in the community can go along on these. The Cleveland Indians have technically retired the mascot of Chief Wahoo, but the nickname is still the Indians, and if you went to a game, I'm sure you would see a lot of imagery that was reflective of both the current nickname and the old mascot.
Yeah, so it seems like it's really important to actually go ahead and replace. And I mean, there are some other considerations that you could bring to the table that have to do with like, you know, like how are our current, I don't know, how are our current merchandising marks going to be hit if we change the mascot in such a radical way? But I think of it actually sort of from a sort of more of a moral stance, right? Like that just like directly talking about images as being racist, images as being offensive to the communities that they're purportedly supposed to represent, matters for how you create communities and how you communicate to people who live in Ohio and root for the Cleveland baseball team, right? To communicate that that baseball team is a part of the broader community and not part of just a certain segment of the community. So aside from the numbers about what kind of merchandise you're going to move, it's really important to think about, you know, who this baseball team is for. And that's going to lead to a very different set of ideas about what's necessary for change.